Call the regular board meeting of the Ross Valley Sanitary District to order. Roll call, please.
Borstein,
Yes.
Kelly, absent. Meigs, here. Scylla, here. Gaffney.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item 3 is adjourned to closed session. There is nothing to report from the closed session. And now I'd like to recess the regular meeting. And now we can, okay, I'd like to reconvene the Ross Valley Sanitary District Board meeting. Reconvene to open session.
Nothing to report out?
There's nothing to report. So out of the closed session. Approval of agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now it's open time for public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agendas, and I don't see any public, so we'll move on. Committee reports. HR committee.
The HR committee met on Monday and reviewed the agenda item for tonight pertaining to the manager contracts, agenda item 11, and agenda item 13C, but the majority of our time was spent on agenda item 11, the comp study for the managerial positions. We asked questions like, what's the fiscal impact? What do other agencies do? Is this normal? And it is. And just in general, gather more information about that. Yeah, and then 13C, we just reviewed the human resources activities, which are Felicia's activities. Michael, anything else to add?
We'll discuss that in great depth when we get to item number 11. But it looked, we agree with all the findings.
Please, Joe, do you want to start?
Sure. We looked at the interim financial statements. There was nothing actually that either one of us thought really, there's nothing in the check register. There's nothing to go over. It was a good report, nothing really that stuck out at us. We looked at the annual appropriation limit for the fiscal year, which we'll be going over here as well. We did review agenda item 10D, approve the purchase of a conditional assessment vehicle, which we went over for some time. It's an expensive vehicle. The fact is we have one that doesn't go in 4-inch pipes, and that doesn't even go to 6-inch pipes. Is that right? 6-inch it does?
Some of the lines 6-inch, you can't get the collar, which is the best.
Okay. And this new vehicle will go with 4-inch pipes. It will also has a much better ability to tell us where the pipes are once it's gone into the pipes. We'll have a better assessment of where those pipes really lie in underground curves and such. But more importantly, it's necessary for new technology, new software. It's $500,000 on the. That's the bad news. The good news is we're going to keep the old one. I was happy to hear that. I don't want to see us get really old because I don't think we can make money from these things. You don't make a lot of money on them when they're 10 years old, but it'll be able to be used for a lot of other areas. Also, I'm sorry, manhole covers manhole areas. This has got a 360. It saves the concern of putting people down in the manholes all the time, and that's a safety issue. So we're very concerned about our employees. So that's another good reason to do that. A good investment in safety is always a good investment. So I was approving that. We'll go over that again when it comes up. It's expensive. That was the problem. We looked at the change order for the two change orders, one for $62,000 and one for $153,000. Both of these are a result of learning things after the open cut happened. One was on the scenic manor, and the second one on Sir Francis Drake. But again, after the ground was opened up, things we didn't anticipate to be there were there, and they have to be addressed. Neither of these change orders are substantial regarding the total contract costs.
We learned what drop downs are.
Yeah. Do you want to tell anybody what drop down is?
Yeah, what is it?
Well, a pipe, say like you've got a manhole, and a pipe comes in above the bottom of the manhole, and so they don't want it to just spill down because it's messy and releases sulfur fumes, and it can corrode everything. Well, so right before, on the outside of the manhole, they come down and have it flow into the floor of the manhole. And so what did we do with the drop downs? We replaced them?
In this case, they regraded, yes.
And so the pipe is then going to go a general upgrade, so we have to go back into the line. And you can see that that's an area that would be tough to clean. It's much better.
We also reviewed the manager contracts. Human Resources did that as well, and so we'll bring that up later on in this meeting. Finally, we reviewed the Public Financing Authority financial reports, and of course, we just addressed that by closing one meeting and opening the second. So I'm going to, with that, that's the
Thank you. CMSA.
You want to do that, Mike? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll start. You chime in whenever.
Yep.
It was a pretty short meeting. We talked about the proposed debt issuance plan. And the Finance Committee, which Tom is on, really tried to emphasize that we wanted to push issuing debt out as far as possible while being considerate of that we need to do the funds to do capital improvement programs. In the past, I think we said, oh, we think we're going to do this over the next 5 years, let's issue some debt, and then we'll just draw it down as we need it. And one of the things that we've been working on is trying to get a more accurate 10-year idea of what we're going to do for capital improvement there, and really figure out, looking at the financing, at what point do we have to issue debt in our thought process. But there might be several things, like we might not get as much of the capital improvement done up to that point. You can still push it out. So we need to be very flexible and agile in being able to issue the debt. And there's another thing, which is some of the analysts are looking at it and saying the interest rates are going up right now. And so even though we thought we might not want to push it out until 2020, 2021, that if the interest rates start to climb fast enough, we might want to issue the debt sooner to get a lower interest rate on that deal. So what we gave approval to is, let's get everything in place. Let's get the bond counsel and the legal counsel, and we decided on a competitive bid. So we've got all those things lined up, and all those groups that we're going to make an agreement with have said, we will keep that agreement for 2 years. So we know exactly what it's going to cost, whether we do it next week or whether we do it 2 years from now. And we're just going to come back and look at it at each finance committee meeting and say, when is the time, based on what have we done, what's it going to cost, and when are we going to run out of money?
And we agreed that no matter what, the full board would have an opportunity to head again.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this is for big capital programs that they have planned?
Oh, the whole thing, yeah.
Is that the 10 million that I saw?
9.4 is, I think, what the number was, yeah. It's in that packet, but I think
Yeah.
it's that
What, the amount of bonds?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's also,
$46 million capital improvement, or something like that. And it was also where they could issue 2 bonds or 1 bond.
exactly.
And issue a bond real fast, and we thought, let's issue a bond when we need it. And the other one is that then Jason told us we probably can get an SRF loan for some of this
Right.
stuff, so we don't have to issue a bond.
Well, and not only that, and that was another point in this, is we're going to be putting in another cogen engine over there. We've got a 750 kilowatt engine that's been there for 30 years and recently caused us some problems, was down for a month where we couldn't produce any biogas, and they were flaring. We got that fixed, and it's running very well right now, but we really do need, and we have room to put in another cogen engine. And we looked at 3 different kinds, and we just decided that it would make more sense, the most sense at this point in time, to get another combustion engine. And then the question is, do we get an 800 kilowatt all the way up to a 1.4? And I think the board kind of thought about it and said, you know, the difference in price between the two, all things considered, was about $250,000. That even if you never used a full 1.4 megawatt cogen there, that we might. And if we had to go, if we bought a 1.2 cogen engine, and all of a sudden every beer maker in Marin County said we're sending all of our excess stuff down to CMSA to use, and then we couldn't take it. So we'll have extra just in case. When they built CMSA to begin with, they built it with such a huge capacity that even to this day, we haven't used but a fraction of the capacity of what the digesters can do. So in this case, we felt it was probably the better part of valor to go ahead and think about using the biggest engine, although that's
Biggest
not
engine that fits.
the biggest engine that fits, which would be the 1.4 megawatt. But we don't have to make that decision today. They can go ahead and at the very, very, very last minute, we can decide that, plop in a smaller one, a bigger one, whatever. Now the other exciting thing about that is that using tidal, the money, that we're getting a 50% grant on
That's all right, no.
no grant.
Oh, but I mean, it's revolving fund loan program.
Right, of which
It's the grant, the
Yes.
grant portion.
there's a grant portion of that.
It's called principal forgiveness.
Yes.
Yep.
And we're gonna get a very big principal forgiveness here, so
So
that's.
you go through the process of qualifying for the loan, demonstrating the ability to pay it back and that whole thing, but then you get a grant portion of it. So that's what the principal forgiveness is.
It's lovely. Proposed revisions to the 2018 Joint Powers Agreement. It's moving along. I think everybody's agreed that there's no
Financial.
there's no financial harm to having Larkspur resign, withdraw from the JPA, and they're doing it. It's slow, but.
I think the Sanitary rep made an interesting point, which is correct. Larkspur needs to ask the other agencies for permission or agreement to withdraw. So Larkspur has to sign up a letter to us as West Valley Sanitary and say, we want to withdraw, and we have to agree. They have to send it to Port Madera, they have to agree. They have to send it to Santa Fe, they have to agree. Because those are the agencies that are in the JPA.
Yeah.
They can't just do it in the JPA, they have to do it to the other agencies. It's part of the new agreement that they'll withdraw by the agreement to all the other agencies. So she made a legal point that legally they have to do that. So that's going to slow it down a little bit, but are we working on that document, Steve?
Why don't we put a whereas?
No, because she said the whereas is in the joint power. They have to resign to the other agencies, not the joint power. Yeah, I had the same thought, but I think she's right. And it's
She's
not a
an
big,
attorney.
yeah, and I think she's right, so.
All right.
And
We
we all
also-
have to agree.
Well,
We all have to.
we all have to agree unanimously.
Right?
All the agencies,
That's
do
why
not.
nothing ever got done then. There's nobody ever agreed.
That's right.
But this time-
We also appointed the Port Madera rep as treasurer.
That's what?
Treasurer. Eli.
Yep.
Okay, good.
He's
That's it?
very pleased, yeah.
Thanks. North Bay?
I was in South Africa. Somebody else will have to talk.
North Bay, South Africa?
Did you go?
Michael,
Yeah.
attended on behalf of CMSA, you can give your report. And I'll fill in any gaps.
As Pam mentioned, over the past many months, they've been working on a new strategic plan. They sort of went over it, not as quickly as probably I would have liked, but because we've been hashing this out for months. But they went over it, and it's really quite comprehensive, and it's not final yet, but it's pretty close to final. If anybody wants to see it, it's right here. We copy there. It's not up on the website yet. I looked this morning, I looked this afternoon, it's not there. We talked about flood control in the North Bay. And we had a fellow come from the Contra Costa County Flood Control and Stormwater. And he just talked about stormwater and really how you don't, it's a difficulty. And we pay the MMWD to provide us with the water. We pay RVSD to get rid of the water. But then you got this other agency, the stormwater. Who do you call? It's sort of, it's like the stepchild, the ugly stepchild out there that nobody wants anything to do with. And they've got all this new legislation that's happening in Sacramento. That yet they want to keep it, I think it was, they said 55 gallons per day per person in each dwelling unit. So if you've got 4 people living there, they want you to spend that.
Water consumption?
Water consumption, it's all related now. Steve could probably do a much better job at this than I could. Steve attended it also because he was asked to talk about the Delta water stuff that up until several months ago when another agency hired him away, he was in charge of over there. Why don't you do a better job at this than I will do?
Well, that's fine. That's right. The stormwater issues, Mitch Avalon, who's
Yeah.
the Flood Control Association, he covered that in December. It's just the issue about 10 times underfunded for a comparable infrastructure relative to what we have. So we have an $18 million operating budget. Stormwater agencies, which are the cities in the unincorporated county, might have a tenth of that, $1.8 million.
They don't have service charges.
Yeah, and their revenue, and they can't even get SRF loans because they don't have enough revenue to pay them back. So it is a stepchild agency, and they're looking at, so that's a statewide issue. And hey, it relates to us too, because we're telling people to get stormwater out of our sewers. We need to help out explaining where it needs to go, and then work out with the towns and the cities and the county, that we have an orderly way of dealing with it, so we don't cause unintended consequences of moving stormwater out of our system and then causing a problem. So we need to be mindful of stormwater management and respect the fact that there's not a lot of bandwidth in those governing agencies. Stormwater is part of public works in a town that deals with streets and a lot of other things. So that was that discussion. There was a water efficiency discussion that you touched on. In May, there was a statewide law passed that changed us from percent reduction for water efficiency at the tap and laundry machines and shower heads and all of our water use and outdoor irrigation. Instead of saying 20% cut relative to a baseline, which is the old way, the new law says water agencies have to report to the state and aggregate a budget based on their population and a certain amount of use and look at the climate and how much evapotranspiration happens on your combination turf and landscaping. So there's a process underway to come up with standards for each of the 411 water agencies around the state. Okay, so and so the Santa Rosa specialist came to talk about how that fits in Santa Rosa. And Santa Rosa, he did a good job explaining what the new rules are. As a state water board member, this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted to get away from percent cut and get into actual water budgeting. And it relates to the Bay Delta plan, believe it or not, because the idea in the state is moving from the idea of infinite water, like groundwater, pump as much as you want, who cares? In 2014, a law was passed, say, no, we're going to put limits on that, finally. And so we're moving from assumption of infinite water to finite water. And that really opens up
looking at wastewater as a possible water supply, in a really holistic way, and that, and you need to do that, you need a budget mindset. So a budget mindset for water efficiency in the house, on the farm, on water, and then a mindset for water budgeting for the environment. And that's what the Bay Delta plan was looking at. It was like in any given year, 1% of the water that comes into the Sierras and the rivers will be budgeted and sent down the rivers at the right time when it's raining, so the pulses would happen when they naturally happen. And it would be a change from the way federal and state water projects are operated now, which is a little bit more like based on a calendar month. So it's sort of an engineered, over-engineered, or like an operator operating a river system. Well, it hasn't been working. And so that's what the Bay Delta plan, that was adopted in December. My last board meeting was in November, and we were getting ready to adopt. It set up that type of budgeting approach, but also had the option for folks to come up with alternative plans. And they're known as voluntary settlement agreements. So the irrigation districts, the cities, the farmers, the canal guys, they're coming together. American River, another example of the city of Sacramento. They're saying, well, we'll do some flow for the water budget, but we're not going to do as much, but we'll do habitat. And so there's a discussion about trading that off. So I talked about that. North Bay, why would it matter to us? In Marin, we do import water. We import a quarter of the water that goes through our Ross Valley sewers is Russian River water. And then about 3/4 is Mountain Tam water. So there needs to be some kind of environmental water budget. There is an agreement with Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife, to send a certain amount down to Kent Lake. But it's kind of a static amount. So as Marin County, we might, revisit some of those agreements to mimic nature a little more than we do now. And that's what we talked about. But it's not urgent because we still have things working pretty well there, and it's a good agreement. So sorry if I went off on a tangent there, but I would say the strategic plan, I think everybody around the table thought it was going in a good direction. The idea being, let's come up with projects, and tell a story about how this forum, with us as a collection system, or the water agencies, and try to get stormwater at the table, sea level rise adaptation. Folks own some land. Some of our fellow sanitary districts own a bunch of land that might be. And let's think holistically and rank certain projects we can do as multi-benefit projects. And even if it doesn't benefit Ross Valley directly, we're part of a broader coalition that can get money from the federal and state governments to spend, and show our unity behind that and create more of a case for funding for our region to do things. So it's indirect, and so I was even articulated that. So why would I care as a collection system? Well, because we're part of the team that manages the water cycle in Marin County and Sonoma County. And we agree with this priority system that that's a good investment for regional reasons. And it could be something like Highway 37, because we all benefit from that indirectly. And just having a coalition of agencies that deal with water all at the table saying, yeah, that's a good idea, that attracts money from the federal, state, and even foundational private funding. So, and having NGOs there, it's a forum for people to ask questions and have more confidence in the water management agencies. So that strategic plan kind of very good. So,
And Solano County joined.
oh gosh, I didn't even have that down here. It's really important.
That's big.
It's huge, they're culturally a little different maybe. They're hard to get, 37 is a barrier to get over there at certain times of day. But that's something we need to work on with them. Napa just recently joined.
American River.
And yeah, American Canyon. So that makes that entity have more juice, as they say, when it comes to getting grant funding. And I think it's great for us to be part of that, because we can put in multi-benefit issues. We talk about stormwater and sewers, and we try to get some money to our fellow towns and cities to
improve the drainage so it doesn't just get piped right into our system, because I see enough examples, talking with Stephen and John and Catherine in the room here about, really, that is happening? We've got to come up with a more holistic solution, and so there's opportunity for us to be part of that.
Thank you.
Good.
Ad hoc education and outreach.
Okay, so we met, again, I think it was Steve the last time, but Steve's been working behind the scenes all the time. It's really amazing. He's doing a great job. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And,
Steve makes it.
pardon?
Steve makes it.
Yeah. You attended the last meeting with us, though. And we talked about, there's a lot of pre-made 30-second commercials. What's the organization one more time?
Gold Street Design.
Gold Street Design. They will alter it with our logo, and but the storylines are fog,
Or, say,
Yes.
pharmaceuticals.
pharmaceuticals, and what was the other one we want to do is the flushables.
Flushables and the lateral grant.
And the lateral grant information. So those are the 4 messages we want to get out. We talked about putting commercials on Comcast. So we met Michael Lax of Comcast. While Comcast has, I think, 67% of the market in our area. That's why we looked at them. We can put together a package, and we're moving forward on that, where we get a bunch of 30-second commercials on about a 4 or 5 month swing. And our thought was, one of the things we thought about is, do this. We have the budget. It's already in the budget, so that's not a problem. Get the message out. By the way, we're also talking to movie theaters for some pre-movie commercial fund. Get the message out. And then at the end of the preliminary time, whether it's 4 months or 5 months or 6 months, we can ask our sister agencies around, because it's going to be in Marin, hey, we can continue this, but we're going to need a little help, but we'll throw your logo on MMWD, we'll throw your logo on Las Colinas, North Bay, North Nevada, San Rafael, or Madera. So we think we can get them to join us, but we're going to go ahead and get this thing going. And I think it's a great project. The commercials are fun, they're light, and we want to get these messages out. And one of the most important things about this is, by expending some money, we're trying to lower the costs of cleanup of fog, lower the cost of the flushables. There was a second article in the New York Post recently about a second big, huge glob in London. Another fat burger, is that what they're calling it? It says 2 of them in about 3 months. And the cost of that over a period of time is massively going to be more than the cost of getting some outreach. So we're looking at spending a little money to save money. So very pleased about how it's going. Steve is working very hard, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's an environmental cost too.
Yeah, that's right, of course there is, yeah.
Now, I would like to know, where did you read it?
Oh, we did not. We met at Turner.
Pam, do you have anything to add?
It's very exciting. I mean, we just came to the table, threw out these ideas, and then this guy at the Comcast show, it's just been really smooth. And I give a lot of credit to you, because we're so busy, and you're able to kind of keep it
Thank you.
cohesive.
There should be 3 commercials ready in 2 weeks for everyone to review. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll be considering a couple of packages, there's a $15,000 package or a $25,000 package, and that, the latter one, the more expensive one, would include a couple of targeted Giants games, Warriors games, just for, they cost more, like $200 a whack, versus maybe $1 to $5 per segment. It just depends on the channel.
Yeah, some of them are as cheap as $1.
Which one is that?
A&E, here's some of the
12 midnight to 5 a.m.
Right, and they're all.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah.
I was kidding. Okay.
I want-
Ad hoc committee for facility search activities.
Sorry to interrupt, President Gaffney. I just wanted to make a note that I did circulate this. We got invited by Marin Municipal Water District and the Golden Gate National Park Conservancy to be on the host committee of agencies on the 100th anniversary celebration of the Alpine Dam, which will be on Saturday, May 18th. And we, to be participative, we'll attend a planning meeting coming up. There's a 1-hour meeting in April, but we want to use our resources and connections to spread the word about this anniversary. And as I mentioned earlier, at least 3/4 of the water through our dry weather system is coming from that system, from Alpine Dam.
Do they want to, is there a charge for us to?
Facilitate sponsorships for the event when possible. You know,
Who's going to attend that?
have your name. Well, we'll figure it out, you know, I can do it, and I'm planning to attend the event.
I may attend it, you know, if I, it's a
I was
close,
thinking, maybe we're
Tom,
Where
weren't
is
you-
it?
Tom, weren't you there when?
On Alpine
Up
Dam.
the dam, okay,
No.
all right.
So showing solidarity with the water agency. Okay, that's it.
Ad hoc committee for facility surge activity.
We went and saw it a week ago Friday. Yeah, a week before last Friday. And Steve and Felicia and Tom and I were there, and we got a tour of the facility, and we made a very big decision that we should have all the rest of the board members go and see it. That it was impressive, and it seemed to meet many, if not all, of our criteria that we had.
So I went and saw it last Friday.
And I kind of think it's so important that we ought to do the decision as a board,
Yeah,
rather than a committee. We can't,
no,
we're not going to commit
we said that up front.
Yeah.
for something that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Item 9 is verbal report by board members and staff and request for future items. So let's talk to the board. Any verbal reports? We're in South Africa.
Oh, I went to a wedding and then I went on a safari.
Oh, where?
It's near Kruger, it was a private, so it was, yeah. But no, it was great. Everybody should go once.
Steve Moore knows about, I had 2 conversations with people on the bike path, one about a truck driving 18 miles per hour, that was gonna get slowed down.
We took care of that.
I know. We have GPS on all of our trucks, so when I get told by a neighbor, somebody is driving down the bike path too fast, we can find out within minutes who that person was. And yeah, and then some positive feedback about us helping find a leak on Barron's, because we have such good data, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, Pam Scott, who's also on the Kentfield Planning Advisory Board, so you know, she holds a little sway in our unincorporated Kentfield plan, popped by and said that it was really amazing, both the way the staff interacted with the public and that we helped find MMWD's problem, yeah, which we have done before.
Then they've done it for us, except they usually wait about 2 weeks.
They don't have the data, right? They don't have a smart way to find.
They must have.
They wait for the leak.
They wait for the leak.
Yeah,
They have
We can see
sound,
the surge.
they have sound.
they do, but I don't know their operations.
So we're having a lot of fun over in McAllister land.
Yeah.
We're pump station business.
No.
I don't know anything.
Not moving. Okay, staff, all right.
Good. There was a sanitary sewer overflow at 16 Broadmoor near Morningside.
Just one.
Yeah. And, but it was from 2 locations, one overflowing manhole and one overflowing cleanout. And the flow of, let me step back, there was a major storm on Sunday, January 6th. It was predicted in the area of 1 inch, and then as the day grew closer, maybe more like a 2-inch storm. When all said and done, the next day we learned that in the area upstream of the sanitary sewer overflow, Sleepy Hollow, the rain gauge there measured 4.44 inches. So anywhere from 2 to 4 times the rainfall expected. So our $4 million capital project underway there, 1617 gravity sewer project, Meadowcroft, Cohen. We're working on installing pipelines in the Sir Francis Drake Broadmoor area to connect up and enlarge the sewers there to create capacity to avoid this very type of event. And so I actually was approached because some folks in the neighborhood connections with our local newspaper, Marin Independent Journal. We got some questions right away because there was eyewitness accounts of this overflow from a manhole and a clean out going to one single storm drain. And I was approached by, and ended up having 3 written news stories, 2 by the Marin IJ last week, and then 1 by KQED. And we had 2 2 radio interviews that I gave to KCBS, which was aired twice on one day, and then KQED radio. So it was 3, 2, and then 3 news TV stories of both evening news and late night news for channels 2, 5, and 7, KTVU, KPIX, and ABC. And the 3 TV stories went in successive days, so I had a different shirt on each interview. Which showed kind of a progression of understanding. The messaging, I was trying to be consistent that in the spirit of transparency, our mission states that we will have no avoidable sanitary sewer overflow. And there's elements, initially, as we do our investigations, there may have been some avoidable aspects of what happened. And when we look at the pumps and pipes that are set up, as we get into the wet season at construction sites, do we have enough capacity to move a storm around the work project? That's the question. And so, it was very pertinent because after the overflow ceased, we had more storms predicted that week. So rather than worry too much about who's to blame or what things caused the issue, other than to plan for the forthcoming storms and mobilize the necessary equipment, do the calculations, put the pipes and pumps in place to be ready for a storm such as we may be hearing as we have a meeting right now. So that was really the priority that week, but we also did, anytime anyone came to us with questions from the media, the public, including the neighbors, we responded. Our staff were exemplary in their response. We were on site anticipating potential sewer overflow before it happened. I checked in that morning, sensing, with the storm coming, there was something. Steve said they were balancing, when I contacted him in the morning, they were trying to balance the pumping around the site. And by noon on Sunday, the overflow began. And it didn't end. There was a peaking to it, and then there was a long tail, a long, slow recession of the overflow that went to midnight and passed. So it was almost a 12-hour duration that occurred. The initial estimates were a little lower. Right now, we estimate over 100,000 gallons had been overflowed, and we recaptured a lot of that. We're in the process now, because it's painstaking work to look at video, get the accounting from the trucks that we pumped out from manholes and the storm drain itself. So to come up with an accurate estimate of overflow, we expect to be ready for the 15-day report, which is required by the Regional Water Board. And that would be January 21st, so that's still a few days away. And I'll say, as far as the actual lay of land, I inspected the area with Rafael Zarco to understand the way the sewers work in that area and where the overflow went. And there was only 5 houses that fronted the actual storm drain gutter where wastewater mixed with stormwater occurred. So it was actually quite limited in the neighborhood where potential exposure would occur. And so that enabled our staff, who were there before it even started to overflow, to be able to put up signs along that flow path, meet with each of the neighbors, and let them know what was going on, move some cars, and get that area isolated and protected, and then go and know exactly where that water entered the creek, Sleepy Hollow Creek, and we went upstream and downstream of that specific location and took samples. We posted signs there. It's not really a highly publicly accessible area. It's not a park or anything like that, but we took samples and we're getting those results back, and we'll summarize them in a report to the state, a 15-day report. We also are going to do a 45-day report because it's over the 50,000 gallon threshold. And that's a technical report where we really get down into the details of the activities leading up to this event, what might have been preventable, what acts of nature that we could not have controlled. So we'll have engineering firms support us in doing a technical analysis to get to the regulatory authorities as well as the public. So there's a 15-day report and a 45-day report. With that, I will, actually would invite staff if they want to create, add any details. But the system that we put in to convey the storms of this month, as we try to finish up this project in the February timeframe, far exceeds the capacity we had before. And we're confident on the order of 7.4 MGD bypass capacity. And we calculate, a rough calculation early on, a screening level calculation is maybe 6.3 MGD would be what we need to move in a peak situation. So we have it designed at 7.4 to pass at 6.3. So we have confidence that what we have in place right now should be protected, but we'll keep a very close eye on it.
And you mentioned just what CMSA saw during that same time period, just to give us an idea.
Yeah, there was a base flow before the storm on the order of about 11 MGD going into the CMSA plant, and we're about half, maybe to 55% of the flow. There was an instantaneous maximum flow, so comparing that against 11 MGD, it was 105 MGD instantaneous, and there was actually a period of time, it was a minute, where it was 95 MGD. So that's actually a significant peak at the treatment plant. And I'll say that looking at the hydrographs of San Rafael and Corte Madera, they matched ours. Ours wasn't higher or lower, really. And in fact, San Rafael's, frankly, looked a little higher than ours as far as responding to a peak. So it was an interesting graph.
Steve, there was a letter to the editor today that we got, and the gentleman said, why are they doing this project in the middle of winter? Why?
Well, it's a $10 million project.
So it was a $4 million project, and it wasn't being done in the middle of winter per se. It was the beginning of winter. And the wet season, there's dry periods within the wet season. And we'll go out to bid, we'll try to get things done in the summer. Delays will occur through unforeseen circumstances in the underground. And so schedules aren't always as iron tight as we'd like. And so we are trying to finish up, we're almost done.
Actually, we work on these projects all year long. Isn't that the situation?
They're smaller diameter, but yes.
We can, and really the weather is no longer just hard and fast, wet and dry. Since the year 2000, climatic evidence in our state is there's two peaks to the wet season. There's like an early one and a late one, and there's a dry period in the middle of the wet season now. That's been happening every year since 2000.
We give up too much time.
Well,
You're
I actually called it, he didn't know that, so I'm talking. But here's my feeling. We have $50 million of projects in the works. We can't do them all in the summertime. It's just not, it's not possible. And if we didn't do it all year long, and we required our partners to do it only during the summer months, then they would have to charge us a lot more than they're charging us because they have to have that as compressed time. So we have to do it year round. There's a lot of work to be done. We're under court order to get these things done. We're doing them the best we can. And this was unfortunate. But the one thing I liked is that Steve, as the spokesman for the Washtenaw Sanitary District, didn't point fingers, he didn't hesitate, he didn't went away from it. He was open, he addressed the public, he went on a number of radio shows and reported to the newspapers. I thought he did an excellent job. I thought the staff did an excellent job. We'll find out. I mean, I'm anxious to get the 15-day report myself. As I said to him in a private email, don't write a report for me, but when the report's ready, I want to see it, and I want to see what really was lost. And of course, to the very point, when you have that much water, it proves how much we need to get these pipes fixed. It's indicative of, right, in the wintertime, you get a lot of rain going through those pipes, and you shouldn't, and I'm hoping that these projects, and I think we all are, will lower the flow that we have to central Marin sanitation. So,
Well, that's kind of why I asked the question, because what I appreciated was, from our response was, somebody's responsible, somebody did it. Later, let's fix the problem as fast as we can. Then we'll figure out, 15 days, 45. Blaming is somebody's time.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what we did.
That's right. Didn't we find out through this that we found some of the homeowners nearby had sump pumps that were feeding into?
We're looking into the whole area, yes.
But they had sump pumps feeding into the sewer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have a list of houses. There's all kinds of things going on over there. And we actually added a sub pump pamphlet with Gold Street Design to hand to everyone out there on why it's bad. So it's another
Education and outreach committee.
Yep.
So we got a building there.
oh, yeah.
Any further, any other staff reports?
Yeah, I wanted to give a quick update on Larkspur Landing. Thank you for approving last month's task order to continue engineering services for preparing contract bid documents, ultimately, to go out to bid and clean up the Larkspur Landing property in accordance with EPA requirements to be able to make that land suitable for a property transaction of some kind. Right now, we're held back. So, EPA approval was anticipated on January 7th. But that's been delayed due to a federal government shutdown. But I'm pleased to let you know that there's a way for us to proceed in parallel, because according to our consultants, from working, Todd Miller and those folks that are working with them for a while, we really narrowed the issues with EPA to just a couple things that we can address through the contract documents, in terms of decontamination of equipment. To the extent that any trace PCB in the dust is on the excavator. We're going to do a cleaning procedure, collect the water, dispose appropriately, and use wipes and verify PCBs are not leaving the site on equipment. And this was the type of last minute thing. And so we put that as a requirement in the bid documents. And if we fail a test 3 times, then we come up with an alternative and we report to EPA. So that's the level of detail we're at. We're in agreement on the level of excavation and the limits thereof. EPA wants to make sure that the material we excavate is suitable for disposal in a municipal landfill. And that we're under a 50 part per billion threshold of PCB in solids. We feel confident based on the data we've seen, extensive data, that we'll achieve that. If you're over that threshold, then you have to go to a special landfill. So that's the remaining, and we'll have procedures built in to show EPA as the project progresses, if we are successful in going out to bid, getting a good competitive bid, and working this summer, we'll be able to be in contact with EPA to create those assurances. So given that those are the things that are holding the approval up, we believe we're addressing them and can move forward with getting contract documents prepared. And we do have a draft scheduled from the consultant. We anticipate if we stay on track, we would have something for you in the May timeframe to be able to go out to bid and get work done this summer. So despite the federal shutdown, we do feel like we can move forward. And the project itself is probably a 4-month duration, assuming 20 work days per month. There was about an 80-day work period predicted based on truck traffic and getting the stuff off site. So, we really do want to move. I pushed the consultant to try to get us something ready by May, so that
we would be able to mobilize in July, August, September, October. This is one of those projects we really want to get it done before it starts raining.
I was gonna tell, let's tell this guy in Nevada that.
Yeah, well, this is one that's really sensitive. We can't do a bypass necessarily on it. So that's it.
What percent is above 53, do we think, 53 parts?
Less than, I think it was, I actually have that number, I think it was 2,600 cubic yards of a 26,000 cubic yard
So like
site, so
5%.
like 1% or 10%, or whatever that was, yeah.
That's right.
It's a
There
really,
is,
it's a very small,
And that has to go to Utah or something? Okay.
it has to go to a specialized landfill, it doesn't necessarily have to go out of state.
yeah, might be, county, as well.
It's
I don't
okay,
know.
I just wanted to know.
Okay, yeah, it's 700 cubic yards out of the 26,000 cubic yards.
Oh, that's really, okay, good.
Yeah, it's a minor amount. It's that concrete rubble with the paint on it.
70 truckloads.
Is it?
Okay, thanks. Any more verbal reports? Okay, consent calendar. Anybody like to pull anything off the consent calendar?
I think we should pull the 10C.
10C, determining in appropriation.
No, I'm sorry, wait. The truck.
The truck.
D. Thank you.
Okay, 10D. Anybody want to approve anything else?
I move to approve A through C and E. You're asking me if we to pull in?
Yeah, anybody want to pull anything
No.
else? Okay, let's go to 10D. Approved purchase condition assessment vehicle equipment and software including IBAC, Panorama, HD, 3D geosense, mini light cam, Wincam, etc. In the amount of $532,000.
Yeah, I didn't think we should put this just on consent without bringing it out. So I'd like to talk about some of the things that I learned. And then I'd like maybe a staff report just to touch on it because it is a lot. It's not
It's a big item.
It is a truck, but it's also software and there's very, very high definition resolution with a total of pixels. Now we have a current CCTV pixels of 86,400. We'll be moving to 8,847,360. The point is that when these very small cameras go into the pipes, whether they're 4-inch pipes or larger, and this one again will go to 4-inch pipes, it will be a lot easier to see cracks and leaks because of the massively increased pixels. You just can't catch everything on the lower end pixels. So in the long run, again, spending money to save money is my understanding of this project. You can look at this film and you can see the pipes, get them repaired. It also, if I remember correctly, this will go up through some laterals that we haven't had an opportunity in the past to go through. Is that right, Kathleen?
We could, yes, we have access.
And we'll be able to do many more feet per year using this vehicle than we've been able to do before. So our efficiency per person out there, number of feet per person out there doing the CCTV will go up quite dramatically.
I think you make a good point. It'll go up very dramatically, but in addition to keeping the old truck, now you're going to have ever so more inspections possible. Right?
And what's neat is in the manhole, usually in a restricted space, it takes 2 people and you're getting the suit on and everything, and it's probably a half a man day.
Yep.
And this, you just drop down and up
It does
and
the
down.
360.
And how long?
5 minutes.
How much?
5 minutes.
5 minutes instead of, am I right on about half a man day with or maybe 2 hours or 2 hours? 2 man
And then you take
To-
that back to the
What do you
district.
think, John?
You say 2.
If I may, there's a couple ways to inspect a manhole, and the current way we're doing it now is we're simply opening the lid and we're looking in and seeing what we can see. It takes 1 or 2 guys about a half an hour to an hour to visually collect the information that we're looking for, enter it into the system, and then move on to the next manhole. We're limited there in that all you can see is what you can see from the surface. So manholes, as you know, are eccentric or concentric, which means that sometimes they're off to the side, and you can, a 12-foot manhole, you can only see what you can visually see with your eyes. Which we're gaining a lot of information but that we never had before. But what the scanner does in the manholes in 5 minutes will lower a machine from the top to the bottom, and it creates a three-dimensional Google map of the manhole. So you can steer around inside the manhole and see all the details. And these are all measurable points. So we'll be able to complete now almost complete level 2 inspection in about 5 minutes, with about 5 minutes of an operator making the assessment with all the measurements that coincide with that. For example, we'll be able to accurately measure the incoming outgoing pipes. We'll be able to accurately measure the pipe wall and the diameter. We'll be able to use the device to measure down to a fifth of a millimeter. So if we start doing manhole lining, we can check our contractor work to make sure they're putting the correct depth or thickness onto the epoxy or the cementatious, whatever technology we're using. And that's just one aspect of how the machine is going to increase production. One of the magic, or not magic, one of the benefits is the operator in the field, he's going to be exposed to that manhole for around about 5 minutes, maybe 7 by the time he puts out a few cones and whatnot. Whereas before, they're out over the manhole the entire time. So we're going to get them out to a traffic site, and we're going to move them out very quickly. They're going to gather all this information in the field, and then we're just going to have a guy sit on a rainy day or when it's appropriate and assess it quickly in the office. Both of those develop a program or process where we'll be able to increase our manhole scope of what we're getting by tenfold at a speed of at least 3 or 4 times as fast as we're getting it now, all with one guy.
Yep.
So, whereas before, and there'll be exceptions, right? If we're out in the middle of the hub in Sir Francis Drake, it's going to take the whole crew to do big traffic control, things like that, regardless of what technology I use. But for most of our streets, they're small streets. We put our lights on, put a couple cones out, and one guy can do this work pretty quickly. We'll also be able to incorporate that with our regular CCTV inspection without hindering our current CDO requirements. So we have a pretty big workload, for example, this year. But because we'll be moving faster in that realm as well, we'll be able to tie the two together, get more work, better detail at a quicker pace. So this is the hopeful outcome that we expect from this machine.
No, this is great, John. Thank you for the detail. It's a good qualitative review, but Felicia reminds me that we looked at this in the budget, and this is budgeted, and there's a budget reason too. This is anticipated to be the largest expenditure this year for new equipment, and including the van, the high definition, the video inspection equipment and software systems. This is replacing 10-year-old equipment, so it's a good investment this time. It also provided twice the inspection speed, high definition scanning, as you mentioned, so we can really tell what we're looking at. Sometimes we misidentify defects because of the low resolution. Integration with GPS and GIS data for location of defects, infiltration rate characterization for the pipe, much faster interpretation and analysis of pipe condition information, which really feeds back to what our work plan is for maintenance and repair. And finally, based on the higher production rates for both field work and data analysis, we're approximating annual labor savings at $200,000 per year. So 500 and change and pays for itself in 2.5 years in terms of labor savings. And then also, we're just going to get other benefits in terms of an improved, directed prioritization system for our line maintenance, line repair, and capital work. So it's many multi-benefits. So I appreciate the description and qualitative.
If on getting it, I said, well, don't forget to insure. Somebody runs into your truck.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you get two.
Want to go back up?
Such a good deal.
I think we're all committed to technology.
Yeah.
It was
Especially if it can save money.
It was a good exercise, though. I think the former general manager, had an opportunity when we were putting the budget dollar numbers together. With the labor cost savings that John was describing were quantified
Yep.
at that point in time. Like they were saying, the payback is pretty quick on.
Okay, so,
Warranty on this? What's the warranty? 500 grand.
Well, the vehicle comes with a standard 3-year, 30,000 on the car. And then the equipment is typical 1-year manufacturer's warranty.
Sorry,
1-year manufacturer's warranty.
on the 1 year.
Yeah, that's standard across all camera manufacturers, yeah. That's-
I only give that to guys.
Can you get an extended?
Well, we asked for that option, and if I may, we checked all the local references that are using the equipment. So we checked Hayward, Livermore, City of San Francisco uses the equipment. And what we're finding is that their level of repair is nominal. The equipment is very robust in its manufacturing design. Not only we're going to save in production time, but we should see a significant savings in the amount that we're spending now in sending our current equipment out for repair and service.
So to use this, is it easy to train? Is it just one person that will have to do it, or cross-training, or how will that go?
I noticed there's 2 training days included in the contract.
Yeah, well, with the software and the equipment, we'll probably be looking at 7 to 9 days total with the package. But that'll be broken out over a couple different trips. So what we'll do is we'll come out and get the operators up and going, ourselves included. We have a lot to learn in how we're going to move the data back and forth. And then the manufacturers will come back out at a later date and check on us to make sure we've remembered enough. And then from there we'll go. But as far as the training side, it's not going to be a far stretch. In fact, it's going to make it easier on the operators because it's going to change the way they do the inspection. And we'll have the operators in the field just running equipment start to stop, and then we'll have that opportunity to use the software to provide the codes and or do the assessment later on.
Okay, so I need a motion.
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We all get to go for a ride?
11, consideration of approving manager contracts effective January 16, 2019. Will it be effective January 19?
Effective today, if you approve.
Yeah. Okay.
They will go into effect today.
No, it says 16.
It's the 16th day. Is there a typo?
Okay, agenda item 11.
No, today's January.
Today's the good.
It is the 16th. All right. 11.
Good. We had a chance to discuss this at both the HR committee and the finance committee. And certainly appreciate all the thoughtful comments and discussion about this item. As your relatively new general manager, one of the first issues that I came across was learning about how the at-will contracts for the 3 managers that report directly to the general manager were expired. They expired in June 2018, and there was a proposal for 2 out of the 3 managers to just reinstate the existing salary and benefits. Because the current ranges that are as part of the compensation structure of the agency, 2 out of 3 managers were at the top of their range. And this came across my desk right at the time when I was looking at the draft classification and compensation study, which the agency committed to a few months back and was also in front of me. So as the general manager, I thought, well, since classifications are being contemplated to be modified for these managers and even the title change. And as an agency, we're looking at compensation structures and comparing it to comparator agencies that we just looked at in November. I thought it made sense, since these are overdue for action, to apply classification and compensation recommendations that you had a chance to see in December in the update of these manager contracts. And so in the staff report, one thing I'd like to point out is we received good input from the board in December about, good questions about, okay, the 10 agencies, well, are the management responsibilities and requirements for all those 10 agencies applicable to our agency? And we went back and looked at the relative, let's say, the complexity of the organization, so the amount of people in them. Are we talking about 100, 200 people, or are they more like 35 to 40 like we are? What's the budget? What's the service population? So we ended up recommending to our consultant to take out the top two, East Bay Mud and Central Sand, because of their organizational complexity, and rerun the numbers for the managers and other employee classes that are unrepresented. And we came to, instead of being over 18% below market median, we were more like 12% below market median. And that, we then asked our consultant to recommend a range of salaries for these three management positions that corresponded to that change from the labor market median. And so that was the compensation side. And then there was a classification side where we're recommending 2 out of the 3 managers get renamed, basically, from business administrative services manager to the finance administrative services manager, and also from the infrastructure assets manager to the technical services manager, and use the appropriate compensation ranges for those. Then finally, in discussions with the board members, and thinking about just how the organization's run, we asked that the position of assistant general manager be considered and defined by our consultant in the classification study, and that be a position that the general manager could recommend for one of the 3 managers that directly report to the general manager. And that would be an overlay, so it doesn't create another level in the organizational chart in terms of direct reporting. It becomes a, but there's augmented duties to that manager besides their existing management duties and supervisory duties, also being a backup for the general manager in cases where we have to, maybe I have to be in 2 places at the same time, or on vacation, or whatever the circumstances, have a backup when needed. So that, the recommendation, if we choose to grant the assistant general manager to one of the managers, entails another salary step increase on the order of 5%, as recommended by our consultant. So stepping back, my proposal here is to, for 2 out of the 3 managers, technical services and operation and maintenance, do a lateral move into the new salary structure.
So when are we gonna go live?
The power went out at the beginning of Priscilla's comment, and that's why we looked at the last video.
Got a huge banner, fine school.
We can probably put the
school, library,
What's the, you mean our logo?
But it's recording now.
logo with the lights and the,
Oh,
we'll talk about it the next meeting.
It's not on now.
If you'll ask
Did
Mary.
you show her the banner?
Comments? Oh, yeah, then we'll be back on track.
I like the banner.
You don't have to record it, I told you.
Correct.
We have to go to.
Right.
hello.
That's the other one. We got the fog one.
So, are you guys taking a break, or you just?
We're just starting again.
People are drawing the rules.
You got Q Mary.
We got fog
Okay,
again.
oh, well, no,
It's
I,
5 inches below the 12.
was it like flat? Oh, that.
So the
Okay,
12
starting
is
up
at the
at
top of the 12 or just
I
before
was
it
just
gets
going
into
to
the?
say, I think this is a good idea, and I knew.
We could,
Still below the 12, Steve.
so So we could still make an adjustment if that along with the
We're
law.
back on video, is that correct?
Joe, are we on?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that we would hate to lose any of these folks, we would spend more money if we did lose any of these folks. And since we know where the salaries land, we have a great team, and I think particularly this time, after just got a new general manager, it's completely appropriate, particularly the assistant general manager title for Felicia. So I move, are you?
Pamela, do you have any comments?
No comment.
I move we approve the manager contracts effective January 16th, 2019.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And then we deserve that.
You burned it. Yeah.
Do we have to insure them so they can drive home tonight?
I'll take the Mercedes.
Taking Uber.
Wait.
That's exactly right. What do you mean going home tonight?
Brother Michael, they don't.
Go back to the office.
I'm sleeping in the van tonight, okay.
Fair enough.
Okay, agenda item 12 is consideration of approving the amended CMSA joint powers agreement recognizing the control of the city of Lawrenceburg. And I suppose we should adopt this if we want, and then we have a few letters
Yes.
in the future, but
Yeah.
it would be appropriate to act on this now.
So there aren't that many changes. This simply alters the JPA that we just did by taking out most of the word City of Larkspur, putting in one whereas they withdrew, changing a few names, pointing out that whereas the Larkspur City Council on December 12, 2018 meeting approved the withdrawal from the JPA section pursuant to section 20 of the JPA, and whereas the members intend the current amendment to constitute the 8th Amendment, so small changes.
Andrea, are you?
Yep,
Are you trying to talk? We heard something in the background.
nope.
Okay, fine. So it's really minor. You'll see the red lines through there. Again, one of the representatives from San Rafael on CMSA pointed out that this, so if I can find it, 20. The withdrawal, if a member's governing board decides to withdraw, the members will convene a meeting to discuss the warrant and process and details. The member seeking withdrawal should not be entitled to any financial. And so they've got she wanted them to write, Larkspur to write a request to each member of the JPA, meaning Corte Madera, San Rafael, and Ross Valley, requesting withdrawal, and then we each, as individual bodies, approve that, and then when it unanimously is approved, that will constitute the final.
Okay, they already did write it, so
Yeah, but agreeing to all the changes here.
okay.
They said they wrote us a
informing
letter.
us, they asked us to approve it. They didn't ask us to vote on it.
It's just a formality.
It really is.
And the whole point of
I'm
this
not
is
sure it's
also.
legally required, but whatever.
Yeah, that's what I felt.
And the
I think it's just a JPA, and here's.
I like that Andrew.
It's okay, we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
This is what we wanted.
Absolutely.
And it's the right thing, they should have done, well, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It occurred without any problem.
Right.
So we're perfect.
It absolutely did. Very pleased with the entire thing. So in light of that, I would like to move to approve the amended Central Marin Sanitation Agency Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement, recognizing the withdrawal of the City of Larkspur.
Second.
Everybody wants to.
Somebody else can do it. I don't care.
Pam, one second.
And then I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? No.
I would like to just point out that it was, by having one member of the commission be removed, then you have 5 remaining members.
Yep.
So that was included in the update. And then a quorum is no longer 4 members, it is now 3 members of the CMSA commission. So those are the, maybe, other than what you said.
That's correct.
The most substantive thing. And I will just note for the record that Jason Dow on Monday met with S&P representative, discussed the withdrawal, and confirm that the APA amendments will not impact bondholders and would prepare a confirmation letter for our record. And then our financial advisor discussed the amendments with Moody's last week, and they verbally said something similar, so we'll get something from Moody's as well. So this is part of the, you know, the process of approving, just to ensure this would not have an adverse effect on
And the quorum thing for CMSA is different than it is here. If three of us somehow can't show up here, and we don't have a quorum, we don't meet. With CMSA, if I'm not going to be there for whatever reason, one of the other three would go.
We have backups.
We're always, every single person on that board has a backup that can go when if and when they cannot attend.
Great.
So it's not as important.
Yeah, great. So, yeah, with that,
Thank you. Those are very important points, particularly the Moody's not being affected. We did, so I had a motion, it's already there.
And we have a second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And we'll get a letter and we'll approve that too. Okay, performance metrics. So, you know, I've noticed that our flow ranges from 51% to 42%.
Yep.
And that's a lot of numbers for me.
It seems high, it's in the 50s during the rain periods. It's lower during the summer months, that's when it drops. So it dropped in July, it was at 45 in June, it was at 44 in August, but it dropped all the way to 42. So it really does seem to me that we're not really making that, I don't see any real evidence of a lot of improvement on I&I right now, but I'm hoping that we'll continue to see improvements as we continue to see these projects.
You know, I seem to remember a 55% of previous ones of these. Does anybody remember? But what it does show is that all I&I is a little bit less. But what I think it is because we've repaired all these pipes and we can transport more flow now. So, you know, we're not overflowing.
Right. It's not leaking in, it's not leaking out.
And we can transport it.
Well, it's got to be leaking in still. And we know, I think really, the incident on the 6th really shows that we really have to continue smoke testing and find out where people are putting their sump pumps and their gutters into our system, because that's, you know, that's not going to show up on an I&I leak because it's not leaking, it's intentionally being put in. You've got to get that stuff out. So I think I'd really like to see a huge progress, a huge increase in smoke testing and any other testing we can do to get these sun pumps and gutters out of our system. I mean, that's really going to make a huge difference.
that's the second I, it's inflow.
Yep.
Right. Infiltration comes in through the cracks in the joints and that sort of thing. Infiltration. Inflow is actual direct piping and stormwater.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or just water flowing in the street over a manhole with holes in it. That's inflow. So it's more acute. And like you say, you know, it's hard to track these things down. I was having a discussion with John actually today about this point, that it's hard to find a sump pump input because they're periodic.
Yeah.
So you could just walk right by one and not know it's active.
You would if you did a smoke test.
Just got to check
Past
valve.
the pump.
Yeah.
What?
You can't get past the pump.
Yeah,
So
so
some
check
pumps
valve.
are one thing that don't come up.
Gutters will,
Gutters
sun
will,
pumps will.
sanitary
Yes.
drains will, gutters
Thank
will.
you. And then, so is there any way to, is there any,
How did you find out some pumps?
We walked into a basement that was flooded, but it wasn't sewage, it was actual water, and we could tell where the sump pump broke. And then, it's a known problem area, but we have several plans and methods that we're going to use over the next couple of years to find them all.
Broken dagger.
Well, including an education
Exactly.
component, you know, because I think we find the vast majority of our citizens, ratepayers, community want to do the right thing. If we have a solution. To my earlier comments about stormwater, you know, it's in our interest to educate our ratepayers about the stormwater solutions, and not just say get it out of the sewer without giving them a path. That's the right thing to do.
You know, another thing I always notice is our calls and staff hours. And so a private SSO is, some of these roofs, and they flush the toilet and it overflows on their property.
Oh, anything from the lateral connection to the house, yes.
And so they call us up.
Yes.
You know, some of them are February 2020, but we have a lot of ones ending June 19th, April 19, February 19.
Some 18, 2018.
Yeah.
The wrong projects this year.
Yeah. So that's good.
Okay. And then the HR, now these are hours for a quarter?
Yes.
You know, it's actually good to train
Yes.
one of the big.
That was Train the Trainer with Jim McPherson.
Yes.
On how to do copy fixing training. You went to the HR meeting, were you paying attention?
Well, you can- That's what I said.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Meeting adjourned.